I'm with Michelle today. She's recently sold a property with us, and I thought it'd be really useful for her to share her experiences at each stage of the process. Michelle used us, but obviously she decided to sell her property. So, Michelle, what did you do first?
So of course I decided to sell my property, but of course I needed an estate agent to do it. I've moved house before, so I kind of did what I've always done, which is
Muddled
used,
along.
sorry,
Muddled along.
modelled along, yeah. And I kind of naturally went towards estate agents that had well-known names, like the bigger agents. Um,
How have you found it before?
Challenging.
Oh, good.
Very challenging. Um,
And had that put you off this time?
It had put me off going to or asking some agents round to do valuations, definitely. Um, so I kind of always kind of worked on the logic that I'd always want 3 valuations.
Yeah.
So I kind of picked 2 estate agents that were well known, one of which I'd used before, um, just to obviously get a bigger picture. I wanted to see what all different valuations were like. And then, of course, I came across yourselves who were new to the market.
Yeah.
And I've always thought about supporting local businesses, not necessarily going with the bigger chains, because obviously they have certain rules and things that they have to stringently stick to. Of course, I know you do too. But I just know they have targets and deadlines, and often from experience, they give you lip service and tell you what you want to hear. So I kind of wanted to give an independent estate agents a chance.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I picked 3.
So would you have said the previous ones you've used before were a bit more corporate?
Massively.
Yeah.
Massively. And very much, it was like a suit person. Do you know what I mean? And I find that,
rigid.
Very much so. And, I wanted somebody that's going to sell my home, that's going to want to sell my home and like my home. Do you know what I mean? And not just say to somebody, here are 4 walls. I want someone to sort of sell it.
Well, it's got memories. Although you're moving, your house still has in it. For me, I feel like a house still deserves a bit of respect. Actually, it's not just a 4-bed, here you go, in this area. There's a reason you're selling, but there's also a reason you moved here. And I think actually asking the questions, and maybe people, from what we've spoke about before, they've lost their way, haven't they? And
massively.
That you came in, you've said they've come in. So you got the 3 people out.
Yep.
Then what next?
So I had the 3 people come out and do valuations. All were very much the same, to be honest. The only thing that, if I can say, stood yourselves out from the others was I kind of felt like you were much more homely people. Do you know what I mean? You kind of
relatable.
Perfect word. Perfect word. You've sold your house before. You've bought houses before.
Got the children, understand
life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I kind of just felt immediately so much more relaxed with you. And you got what I was trying to achieve, and you got why I was selling, and you took time to understand me.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the other agents were very much like, right, this is the length of your room. You've got 4 bedrooms, you've got this, got that.
I remember you saying some people even come and measure up and know the wall size on that valuation, but you don't even know. And actually the valuation really is a meeting with the property and Michelle to look at the house, to get a figure of what generally it can be marketed for. So it is and it's good to obviously know, but like you say, to measure the walls, it's a bit presumptuous in my opinion to a point.
It felt very robotic.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? As if they were coming in and I'm going to sell your house, which, don't get me wrong, they own a business and that's what they do. But as like a person selling your home, it was very intrusive at that point, because I was like, I haven't agreed for you to do it yet. And I felt like they were sort of almost homing me into their sales pattern without me even agreeing to it.
And then and you can see then why people get led into it, and before you know it, go,
absolutely,
actually, what have I just done? Type of thing.
Yeah. I think one of the agents asked or pulled some documents out, and obviously read through their terms and conditions and their pricing, etc., and then asked me if I was willing to sign the document there and then. And I felt very
under pressure,
massively, yeah. So thankfully I'm not the kind of person that would sign there and then.
But you can see why people just get caught up with it, can't you?
So I kind of did have to say, thank you for your time, but I do need time to think about it. But that made me feel guilty.
And you strike me as the person that doesn't get.
And I don't normally feel like
No.
that. But it's quite intimidating when some people come into your home suited and booted with their paperwork and they've measured your walls, and it's quite intimidating. So needless to say, I didn't opt to go with that agent.
I mean, you've got good stories and memories. Well, not good, but you've got a story to tell out of it all.
I mean,
and
if nothing else, I think, especially meeting with 3 different agents, you get to kind of get a balance of what to expect, and you know, kind of like who you feel comfortable with, because at the end of the day, they've got to come into your home. You know, you want,
and that's only the start of the process, isn't it? There's a longer journey going through.
Yeah.
One thing we often get told, obviously, we're new to the industry. I came into it to help with a different approach completely. Obviously, still professional, but from my experience, lots of lessons learnt from me. And I think people often forget, they do it every day, so they forget what happens next, what the process is. Did you feel like when you was explaining to others the terms of business, what it all meant, or is that quite jargon, like a lot that you probably wouldn't have understood or didn't mean? And
it was very jargon led. You're quite right, and I think on a couple of occasions I was kind of like sat next to you with not a laptop, what's it called, a tablet, and they would show me their reports on Rightmove, for example, and give me figures about how many sales they've made in the area and that they've sold Joe Bloggs' house up the road, and very, very figure led. You know, and at this stage, yes, you want someone that's going to sell your house, but you kind of want someone that's going to want to do it lovingly.
Yes, I know
I'm
what
not
you
quite
mean,
sure that's right for a business.
And like I said, to understand, you don't buy and sell every day, and I think you want them to explain what things mean. And I know you've had conversations with me, and there was always like, well, what's the tie-in period, which we'll talk about later on, and things, but some of it doesn't make sense, and it's about explaining. Like, I know on our terms of business it talks about like multi-agency, sole agency, and it's making sure that other agents have explained that to you, because I think you don't do it all the time.
No, absolutely. To them, it's their job, day in, day out.
They know it.
They just say the words. But to somebody like myself who doesn't, you need it explaining, because else, how do you know? I mean, it's the terminology, sole agency. It's obvious. It's one agent. But actually, what does that mean?
And what's the implications for like tying you in? And
absolutely,
what is the difference between if you have multiple agencies on, and what's best for you? Not actually what's best in the what's best for you, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. I mean, the 2 other agents that and probably yourself included, you know, needless to say, all could promote sole agency, because that's obviously the best way forward, providing they've got not got long tie-in periods, which the others did.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of thought to myself, you know, if you get tied in, and again, this all came down to the decision making. You know, tie-in period. You know, I wasn't really interested how many homes they'd sold. You know, I wanted to know how they're going to sell it.
Yeah.
How they're going to interact and communicate with me. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be sort of left hanging, waiting to hear where we're at. And, you know, and I want someone that's going to be friendly and relatable and not just going to chuck jargon at me.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of cases with the other agents, very statistic led.
So you've obviously sold before, so you've got a little bit more of a wider experience and things. From your previous sales, what lessons learned? Because we all go through life doing something, actually reflect on it, learn, know what we want going forward. I'm not saying everyone buys and sells all the time, but fast forward 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So out of your experiences previously, what did you feel you didn't want this time?
I didn't want this time, I mean, it's going to sound ridiculous what I'm going to say, I don't want to be lied to. You know, and of course you're not going to guarantee that with anybody that you have, but that was the one thing I kind of came away from that thinking, almost every step of the way.
Okay, you almost want them to back up and trust what they're saying. And
absolutely, and I felt like many a times along my previous journeys, I've kind of been given false hope. You know, you get your hopes up thinking, oh, I'm going to exchange soon. And then actually you find out that they've not chased the end of the chain. And actually yours might be ready, but they're not. And they're giving
There's
you
so
false
much,
hope.
isn't there? And when they come in, I mean, no one can guarantee selling a home because it depends what's in the market,
Yeah.
but it's about managing those expectations. And I remember saying to people constantly, we cannot change the buying and selling process. The conveyancing, the legal process is what it is, but actually we can improve it by the communication, being approachable, and by being there when it's needed. And I know that was one of the key things for you.
Absolutely.
Busy life.
I was just about to say, well, because I work full time, I couldn't be phoning you during my office hours because that doesn't always allow.
Young child, like
Young
toddler.
child, yes, and teenagers, yes. You know, so the kind of times that I needed to get hold of you was evenings and weekends. And if, you know, when I had people come to do the viewings, I needed it to be evenings and weekends because I didn't want them coming during the day, obviously because I work from home.
Yeah.
So, of course, again, that was another thing that sort of led me towards you because you whatever time I phoned you, you're there.
And we do get people saying, what, you are open at 6 o'clock in the morning? I said, yeah, but some people want it before they go to work.
Yeah.
Or I've got children myself, so it used to be you come home from an office job, you do tea, you get the children settled. Actually, by the time they're in bed, it's 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's when you start thinking. And personally, for my one, and you'll probably say, when you was actually back in the office, I remember going in the toilet and just like, taking a phone call really quickly, and your conversation's not there. Is it? You're not concentrating. Your mind's not on that sale, and it's about actually saying, do you know what? Oh my God, this is the question I need to answer, and being there for it. So I'm glad that. So obviously you did choose us.
Yes.
You then had your valuation letters, or the estate agents would have all gave you the information on what your house was valued at.
Yeah, they left they left me with like documents that they're the Rightmove reports that they'd all printed off.
And did you find that they were all quite similar?
To be honest with you, I didn't really even want them. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for me personally, I mean, there might be people that out there look and think, right, well, I want the agent that sold the most houses and got the closer to asking price as possible. But I'm a realist and I know that just because that happened on one occasion doesn't mean that can happen next week because the market changes. So it's all very well them saying to me, well, in the past we did this and we used to do this, you know, so that for me wasn't a selling point for me, you know, just being given statistics.
I just think it's about the next step, isn't it? You've had all the 3 people out to do your viewing or the valuations. They've then told you how much your house is worth. The next step, I suppose, would be like instructing. You've obviously had time to reflect and everything. And I think then the next like recording, we should look at the next process. So agreeing to the agent and also then the next step, marketing it and how the viewings and that took place. So thank you.
You're welcome.